To demonstrate my use of professional knowledge, I've included a variety of lessons from a unit on weather. These lessons not only address appropriate standards pulled from the Georgia Standards website for science 4th grade, but they also align to the 4th grade pacing guide outlined for White County schools. I demonstrate my understanding of the subject and content area by having appropriate conversations with students throughout the lessons. Additionally, I make connections throughout all of the lessons to students' life. It's rather easy with this unit because it's weather, and so I really try to pull on what's going on in their everyday life in connection with weather. You'll also see that these lessons include a variety of teaching methods, which come straight from my pedagogical knowledge of incorporating modeling, hands-on activities, videos, all sorts of ways for the students to obtain the knowledge. To demonstrate my use of instructional planning throughout my student internship, I selected results from a pre-assessment that was given before a unit was ever taught. This pre-assessment was focused for reading content. After looking at the pre-test results, I was able to not only prepare lessons, but collaborate with the co-teacher and the cooperative teacher, as they would have better insight how to meet the needs of all students based on the results. To demonstrate my use of instructional strategies throughout my teaching internship, I have included 2 examples of active, engaged learning. The first example comes from the time we were studying moon phases, and I used Oreo cookies to help students visualize each phase of the moon, and then of course it made a nice snack when we were finished. The next example is me informing students that I will be modeling how to write a nonfiction summary. Start to see how to model your summary before you have to do it on your own. Throughout my teaching internship, I provided differentiated instruction with individualized math groups. These math groups were given by me, my cooperating teacher, and a co-teacher, which allowed us to have 3 separate math groups every day to best meet the needs of all students. These math groups would change from time to time depending on how students grew or showed that they needed more help. At time working with each group, I mainly worked with the higher level students. This allowed me to learn to differentiate for students that need more of a challenge. I focused on assessment strategies throughout my teaching internship by using a variety of assessments. On the chart, you'll see a variety of assessments all aligned to particular learning objectives within this unit. There was a pre-assessment given and then various formative assessments throughout the lesson, with a summative assessment in the end. The assessments included formats that were online, worksheets, pen and paper, project-based, etc. Each assessment had an outline for how adaptations would be made to differentiate for all levels of students. One way that I demonstrate assessment use was through a formative assessment. In my initial plans for the unit, this would be the student's opportunity to demonstrate their writing of a summary, and then we would continue on to another topic. However, after looking at the data from this formative assessment, I found that my students needed more practice, and this allowed me to plan and reevaluate the rest of the unit to give myself more time for them to practice writing summaries. Throughout my teaching internship, I provided students with a positive learning environment. This included a well-managed, safe, and orderly classroom. I did this not only through continuing my teachers' behavior procedures, but also by encouraging class conversation, responding to students appropriately, promoting trust and teamwork, and actively listening to my students. I've included a clip of a time when students had partner conversations and then we engaged in a class discussion where I actively listened and paid attention to what all students had to say and gave them opportunities to share their own opinions and then used that to guide my instruction. Look back up here. I think I heard some good conversation going on. So somebody raising your hand, tell me what you and your partner talked about, what it means to summarize nonfiction text. First off,
add the facts from the story.
Facts from the story. That's really good. Bella, what did y'all talk about?
Telling that about what it was in a short way.
A short way to tell what it was about. Grayson and Nate, did y'all talk about anything good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? What?
We talked about how it's like a big paragraph or something. You can just summarize it into like shorter, more smaller sentences and stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's good. So you guys are right. So it's taking a really long, it doesn't have to be super long, but a passage or even a book, if you read a book, and just shortening it, summarizing it into a few sentences to tell the important facts and things that happened, right? The school's laid out from the east to the west, and our public libraries are truly the best. I demonstrated an academically challenging environment through math instruction. The way that our schedule is set up, we have 2 math blocks. One of those math blocks is reserved for teaching new content, while the other is intervention. This allows for remediation and enrichment. 3 students are pulled out of the classroom during this time, so we cannot teach new content. However, we can focus on the needs and abilities of students in the room. During this time, I work with a group of students that we call the 5th grade group. These are higher level students. These students begin to be exposed to 5th grade standards and story problems. The story problems are pulled straight from the framework's task page on the GODE site and focus on students' ability to problem solve, which we believe fosters an academically challenging learning environment. Throughout my teaching internship, I have demonstrated professionalism. I show my consistency both in my attendance and punctuality. I am appropriate in appearance and behavior. My teacher, as stated in the letter of reference, additionally outlined my participation in professional learning opportunities. Okay.
Code of ethics.
I demonstrated communication both with my teachers, co-teachers, students and parents, along with other school personnel. I've included the signed documentation that I was a part of several parent meetings where students were being discussed and we had the opportunity to make decisions about the students' learning. I have some email correspondences between myself and other teachers where we were discussing and collaborating for ideas and planning for lessons. Now I'd like to take the time to reflect upon the things that I learned throughout my teaching internship experience. I'd like to begin by outlining the strengths that I found about myself during this time. I believe that I really excelled when it came to professional knowledge. I demonstrated that I understood the content, that I knew it well enough to communicate it to students, and that would help them and in turn help me as I'm planning, creating lessons and activities. And when I found that I didn't know something, I would take the time to just research it, as you should, because you have to be prepared when you're going to teach students. Additionally, I believe that I upheld professionalism throughout this experience. I was able to focus on professionalism in more than just my appearance, but also in the way I communicated with other teachers or school personnel, which is super important, especially when you want these people to be good references as you're trying to get a job. I think that I maintained professionalism with the students and the parents as well, and though I never had formal contact with parents, I did interact with them face-to-face, and I did my very best to maintain that professionalism. And along with professionalism would be upholding the code of ethics, which I never had an issue with that, and my teacher was always good to compliment me on professionalism. Another area I'd like to discuss in reflection is the weaknesses. I think self-reflection, like our daily reflections that we completed, were a major part in helping me kind of realize and take action as far as weaknesses are concerned. The weaknesses that I saw for myself were differentiated instruction and academically challenging environment. So for differentiation, the reason that I felt like this was a weakness, I had the opportunity to participate in differentiation, but a lot of times it kind of just came down to relying on the co-teacher or the parapro, and while I understand that they are there for a reason and it's their job to help in those situations, there's still things that I as the teacher can do to make it easier for the students, well, not easier, but to make things more appropriate for the students and their abilities. And I think I tried to do that, but sometimes I kind of forgot that, like, that could mean that I could change the assignment altogether, or that, students didn't have to be working on the exact same thing, and I really want to explore and practice that in the future. And then for academically challenging environment, as I outlined in this video, I had the opportunity to practice that for my higher level students. But I think it would just be easy to say that I forget that just because students are IEP or 504, lower, etc., doesn't mean that they don't need to be challenged in the same regard. And so I think it would be good for me to remember that there are ways to challenge those lower students more than just expecting them to do the bare minimum, but still wanting them to push themselves and excel the same as the higher students would. So as is true when there's any area that we have for growth, any weakness that we show, we should always be looking for ways to make improvements in those areas. And because I outlined differentiation and academically challenging environment as my weaknesses, the ways that I really believe that I can grow that is expanding my knowledge first of those areas, doing my own professional development, researching, reading articles, because there's a lot of good information out there, and I think that if I begin by being knowledgeable in these areas, it'll make it easier to then implement them. But as far as implementation goes, starting in small ways, maybe practicing making changes to the way that, like, morning work or some less important assignments, so that I can be comfortable with these things before I expect students to also be comfortable. And they also just remembering that these don't have to be big changes as far as differentiation. For academically challenging environment, that is going to take more work and more growth, and I'm going to have to certainly become more knowledgeable on that, because honestly, aside from higher level students, I don't know how to do that. And so really taking the steps and educating myself is going to help tremendously, I feel, because right now I'm very in the dark about it, and that it's hard to do something when you don't know how to do it.